Hello friends, if you watched my new moon in Capricorn video earlier this month, you saw a little bit of the astrology that we're about to talk about today. Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Mars have all transited past Pluto. If you missed that video, you might want to go check it out, but we're going to talk about it today again anyway, because coming up, we've got the Leo full moon on February 1st at 5:09 p.m. Eastern Time. So grab some tea. Actually, I forgot my tea. Hold on one second. Okay, grab some tea, get cozy, let's hang out, and let's chat. If this is the first time you're seeing me, I'm Sammy. I'm at Infinity Aura Ave, where I do a bunch of stuff that's good for your aura, but I'm here twice a month to check in with you for the new moon and the full moon and all the astrology in between, or most of it. As usual, YouTube and TikTok get the full video. If you're watching this on Reels, you're going to have to come over to one of the other platforms because you're only going to get the highlights and you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. So let's get to it. Today, we're looking at the part of your chart that has 13 degrees Aquarius and 13 degrees Leo, because that's where the sun and the moon are going to sit in the chart for the full moon. Now, the first thing you'll notice is all this stuff going on in Aquarius. Like I said, we talked about this last time, but we're about to go over it. I talked to you before about how all of these planets right here were on the other side of Pluto, and they all had to go through this transformation, this death and rebirth that Pluto brings, and come to the other side, brand new, and that's where we are now. And we're about to have the first full moon after that. Now, you don't have the degrees on here, but I have the chart over there, so I'm going to tell you. The sun is here, what we call how do I put this? Okay, so let me back up because I'm just saying stuff. We have something in astrology called an orb, and what that is the degrees where a planet will affect another planet, and it's usually within 8 degrees. Sometimes you can stretch it to 10. Most of the time I will kind of like go to 10 just because you'll still like you're wrapping it up at that point. But anything within 0 to 10 degrees in each direction, either before the transit or after the transit, you're within orb. So we've got the sun here, which is involved in the full moon, right? And you've got Mars within orb, Venus within orb, and Pluto within orb. Mercury is a little bit out of the ways here, still nonetheless involved because he's still within orb of Venus. You kind of want to imagine this as like a game of telephone, right? The people closest to you are going to hear it the best. And then these people over here are going to have a really hard time hearing the message. But it's very likely that the person right after the start of telephone is going to get a pretty clear idea of what the message is. Logan's fountain keeps going. Hold on. I have to fix this because it's going to drive me crazy. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but give me 1 second. Okay, I shut it off. It's really weird because it's a Bluetooth fountain, so like it really shouldn't be going off. It's my dog's water bowl fountain. It shouldn't be going off if nobody's walking past it, and nobody's walking past it, but something is going on because it keeps going off. Anyway, let's get back to it. So all of these planets are in the sign of we, in the sign of community, versus this is the sign of me and I and individuality. This is where you fit in to the community. It's also change and innovation. Aquarius rules. Aquarius is like very groundbreaking. They like to sometimes if you know an Aquarius, they're like deep in the conspiracy rabbit hole, and conspiracies are not always just like hearsay. Okay, so they like look for the things that are going to bring in the change, which I always thought was interesting because Aquarius is a fixed sign, so and they typically don't like things to change. But this is more like innovative change. So the planet that rules the emotions, which is the moon, which is why energy and emotions are so high during a full moon, is in the sign of me and I. Not necessarily as me and I at like Aries, but more like individuality and how you shine. So this is the self-expression, creativity, and the things that provide you with joy, with happiness. So during this full moon, you really want to set some time aside to be creative, explore your creativity. If I'm going to touch on this later, but like some people will be like, I'm not creative. Then you're more analytical and you still have to come up with things, okay? You're still creating ideas. That's still creative energy. And you have to do it in a way that allows you to express your emotions. And that's going to help you bring in clarity as to where you fit in the group, in the bigger picture. You have to address the self-expression before you can see what groups and what communities and things of that nature you fit into. And you're also looking at, like I said, 13 degrees Aquarius, 13 degrees Leo. And Aquarius energy is about the group. It is about where you fit in, but this is not like conforming to fit in. This is, I'm expressing myself in this real natural way, and this is the community, the group, the way that I fit in genuinely into these things. So this is essentially about figuring out who you are so you can figure out where you share ideas and ideals with other people. Because Mars, Venus, and Mercury are here, it's also how you show up around your values and ideas and how effectively you communicate and express connection. So, like I said before, we had this transit where all these planets had to pass Pluto and go through this death, rebirth, transformation. So, let's go over that so you can understand how that plays into the full moon we're about to have. Through Pluto, these energies were dissolved and reemerge under brand new energy. This is very early. Pluto's very, very early in Aquarius. So this happened through the end of Capricorn and into Aquarius. So not only did they have to go through Pluto, and because that's what Pluto does, it burns it to the ground and then you build it back up. But also when they reemerge on the other side, they're also in a brand new sign. They're in Aquarius now. So they go from this really like rigid idea of how things are working and how things should be done, completely die, and they reemerge in this other sign that is looking at things a little bit differently. Now, both signs are ruled by Saturn. So both instances we're kind of looking at how we're building stability and how we're building structure and how those fit into our lives, but in different ways. Okay? Capricorn does it through building the foundation, and then Aquarius does it by looking at the foundation and going, okay, now I have these ideas, and then building upon that. So I'm going to give you some dates. When I talk about dates in astrology, you give it a couple days in either direction. Sometimes it hits exactly on the day, but I always explain this as say you walk into a room, right? And somebody's sitting in the room. As you get closer to them, you feel their energy a little bit more. And then you don't necessarily have to be right next to them to feel the energy. So, like, it might peak when they're exact, and I'm going to give you the dates when this is exactly happening, but you'll feel it before and after because we're also talking about the orb. And some of these planets, which I'm going to get to, are still within the orb of Pluto. So, they're still going through that change, that rebirth. So, first we have Venus, which is out of the orb. So, Venus has done the work and she's ready to move forward. And this happened on January 20th. She was the first one. Mercury moves faster, so now he's ahead. But she was the first one to cross over from this side to the other side of Pluto. And this is a shift in the things that are most important to you. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's changed. It just might have changed your perspective on those things. It is possible that it changed them entirely. I don't know your life. You take this how it resonates. Second, the next planet to go from one end of Pluto to the other side of Pluto was Mercury. And this happened on January 22nd. And this is a shift in your mental energy surrounding what's important, right? So this could have been a conversation, an idea. It could have been something somebody said that had nothing to do with you, something you read. And that kind of triggers this thought process that joins Venus on this journey of looking at things from a different angle. And then on January 23rd, the sun crossed over from one side of Pluto to the other side of Pluto. And this is, you begin to see who you have to become to implement these changes. Now, at this time, Mars is still on the other side. So Mars is not really acting in the same way as the rest of these planets are looking forward, right? So there's a little bit of a conflict there. And right now, I believe it's the sun. Yes, the sun and Mars are still within orb. So there's still this dissolution of who you saw yourself as or who you were, who you're presenting yourself as, and how you have to come through on the other side to be this different version of yourself to join the rest of these planets in getting to where who you have to be to where you got to go next. And then last was Mars, which was January 28th, which is actually as I'm filming this right now. Mars moved over from Pluto uh, in Capricorn. And, well, what am I saying? Mars, I'm going too fast. I think it's the tea. It doesn't even have caffeine. I don't know what I'm saying. So, Mars moves over from one side of Pluto to the other side of Pluto. And this is the implemented change in behavior. This is when you start to move a little bit different. Now, this just happened, okay? And then the full moon is only a couple days away. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, as I'm filming this. The full moon is Sunday, right? So by Sunday, like I said, the sun and the moon and Mars are still within orb when this full moon is happening. So like the change in behavior, because Mars rules action, is still kind of like rebuilding itself. Okay, so it's dissolved, right? You might not be acting in a way that you were before, but maybe the behavior that you need next is not really there yet. And that's what this full moon is for. We are clear on the Venus and Mercury stuff here. And we use the full moon to release the version of yourself that does not fit in with the big picture, right? So, who we are and how we move, what we're doing, those things are still kind of like working themselves out. And that's what this full moon will help you do. And you use creativity, whatever that means for you, okay? You use creativity to do that. Maybe you do like to paint. Maybe you do like to draw. Maybe you do like, I don't know, what else is creative? You want to build Legos and makes you feel good? Whatever. Whatever is creative that releases that energy for you. And if you're going to say to me, well, I'm not a creative person, we all create. Okay, we all create in different ways. So maybe you're, like I said before, maybe you're analytical. You just write things down. Okay, and maybe that's easier for you to be creative. You're still creating the next version of yourself. Now, this full moon is square Saturn and Neptune. Neptune has just moved into Aries. I did a video on the astrology. I'm looking at the board that I used in the video. It's probably the last video before this on YouTube, from the early January through March. So I talk about a little bit about Neptune in Aries, and then Saturn goes into Aries. I talk about that in there too. That's a video that if you missed, you should go back because it does go through March. So you might want to check that out. Anyway, so because this is square, the moon is square, these two planets, this might be a little confusion over exactly who you need to be, but you should be clear on who you are not, right? You need to be clear on the version of yourself that was not working when this like sort of tweak in perspective over January occurred, right? There's this idea of like, especially with the sun here and Mars, like there's this idea of, I'm not really sure what's the next version of me or what I have to do as the next version of me, but I know what I can't do anymore. I know what was not working for these things to align. So the next time I see you will be for the new moon on February 17th, but I'm going to tell you about some transits in between that you might want to look out for. So the first thing is going to be on February 3rd, Uranus goes direct. I talk about that in the video where I talk about January through March. But the reason I want to talk about it right now is because it's going to happen pretty much right after the full moon, okay? And it's going to trine the moon once the moon, it happens on the same day that Uranus is exactly trine the moon. So this can look like a release that kind of brings in a surprise, like some kind of shakeup that you really didn't expect through this emotional release that you you work on, whether you know it or not, because it's going to happen. The difference is, are you going to be conscious and use it to your benefit, or are you just going to let it do what it does? Which sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't work out. I don't know, it's up to you. Then on February 6th, Mercury moves into Pisces. Look, I say this every year, okay? Mercury in Pisces gives me real big Mercury retrograde vibes. And maybe that's not the case for people who have Mercury in Pisces. Let me know in the comments if you have Mercury in Pisces and how that transit kind of usually unfolds for you. I'd like to know. But for me personally, And a lot of people that I've talked to, Mercury in Pisces gives me Mercury retrograde vibes. And then we have a Mercury retrograde, but I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's move on. For a lot of this time that I'm not going to see you guys in between now, well, I'll see you on TikTok. You know that I'm posting and whatever, but Venus and Mercury are going to be square Uranus. So that's also some shakeups in conversation about values and how those things align or don't align. Just once Mercury gets into Pisces, make sure you're saying what you want to say. And even if you do, people might not understand you. Okay. This is a Mercury in Pisces is communicating intuitively, and the words are not really wording the way we want them to. On February 10th, Venus enters Pisces. She likes it there, so it brings kind of a nice, sweet, cute little vibe. It does heighten creativity, so that kind of helps your creative projects. It brings a little bit of focus away from like the more serious stuff, and it makes the energy a little cuter, a little sweeter, a little nicer. And then February 12th, we have Mercury pre-shadow starts. Okay, so I have the dates over there on the board too, so let me see if I can see it from here. From February 12th to February 26th, we are in the pre-shadow of Mercury retrograde. Pay attention to the themes of communication, of ideas. Sometimes I find that there's a little bit more traffic during a Mercury retrograde. I don't know about really during the pre-shadow. I haven't really paid too much attention to that. But anyway, you want to look at the themes that are coming up in those areas. Also in the areas of the house that Pisces rules in your chart to kind of see where I'm looking at the camera to see if it's still recording, because last time I did a Mercury retrograde video, it stopped recording, but it's still recording. Where the theme of the Mercury retrograde is going to be for you. Now, like I said, communication is already a little bit off because Mercury does not do well in Pisces. She's not really good at communicating through words. It's more like a vibe thing, which is good if you're paying attention to the vibes, but we still live on planet Earth and we're still using words, and it makes it hard no matter who you are. This Mercury retrograde is going to be. I'm a Sagittarius, and I try to look at the chart with a lot of optimism, and I come here to you guys to talk to you about how to use it to your benefit, and I try not to give you like the scary interpretation that some astrologers do, because it's just not my vibe. I think that you can use the energy to benefit you, whether it's hard or not. Sometimes it's hard, but if you're using it right, it's still benefiting you. This Mercury retrograde is going to be shit. I'm not looking forward to it. I got to be honest with you, because Mercury is not doing well in Pisces already. And then the retrograde is just going to, we'll get through it, obviously. But anyway, let's move on. On February 13th, Saturn moves into Aries. I also addressed that on the other video. Neptune and Saturn are outer planets. They're generational. So what's going to happen is Neptune will spend like the next 14-ish years there. Saturn spends about 2.5 years in a sign. So he's going to move a little quicker through Aries. But these are bigger vibe shifts, like how do I put this? The inner planets, the personal planets, will affect you on a more like you'll notice it more. Okay, these are transits that will come into your consciousness a little bit more, and you'll go, well, this needs to change, that needs to change. The outer planets are a little bit more slow moving, and the change kind of like is upon you. Like it comes upon you, and especially with Saturn, it's not up to you. Okay? Some of these planets, I tell you, like you use them to your advantage, whatever. Saturn's going to do what it does. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, right? Yeah, that's all I have for you today. On February 17th, we have the new moon in Aquarius. That's when I'll see you again. Well, that's when I'll see you again for the, we're calling these the moon meetings. That's what I've been calling them. But I am kind of like working on how I'm going to present the astrology this year. If you've been with me for the last year, this is really the first time that I've gone over the astrology from this time seeing you till the next time I'm seeing you. I'm probably going to keep doing that. I did the last video, which was January through March, which is brand new. I've never done that before. So I'm kind of like figuring out how the astrology stuff is going to go this year. It's always been like my main focus as far as content, but I do so much other stuff. So I'm probably going to see if I'm going to start putting out different things, obviously. Well, not obviously, but I'm rambling now. Anyway, I do fixed candles. I do manifestation oils. I have clean beauty products, my own homemade, well, studio made, and partnership brands that I work with. I also make my own merch. Um, all stuff, like I said, at Infinity Aura Ave, that's good for your aura. And I'm going to get out of here before I just keep yapping to you. So I will see you February 17th, new moon in Aquarius. Maybe I'll see you in between. Like, share, follow, subscribe. So if I do come on here in between, you know where to find me. Leave a comment, let me know how things are working out for you, or just leave me like an emoji and help with my engagement because you like me and this is fun and you have a good time, and hopefully I'm helpful because that's really what I want to do. I want to astrology has helped me in so many ways. Oh my God, I'm yapping. Okay, bye.